1970s tried to copy every superhero and failed spectacularly, but some flops became legends. Why can't we stop loving them? Best, Shazam, 1974 to 76, CBS.
Saturday mornings, it's double the action as WGUS brings you Shazam.
Oh my.
When lightning hit Saturday mornings, kids believed magic could come from a single word. But what really made Shazam explode across 1970s TV? In 1974, CBS took a gamble. A traveling teenager named Billy Batson shouted one word, Shazam, and turned into a grown superhero in red spandex.
Shazam!
Based on Captain Marvel comics, this show had history baked in. DC Comics had once sued Fawcett for making Captain Marvel too much like Superman. So when CBS revived the character, every frame carried that shadow. America's favorite hero's unofficial twin reborn for kids' TV. Filmed mostly in the California desert, the show ran for 3 seasons and pulled 6 million viewers weekly. Yet, it had no villains from the comics, only moral lessons. Every episode ended with actor Michael Gray looking into the camera, teaching honesty, respect, or courage. It felt like your cool uncle lecturing you, but you actually listened. The lightning effects cost less than $100 per shot, and the transformation was just a quick cut with smoke. But kids didn't care. They saw hope. By 1976, Shazam was outselling several network cartoons, and reruns lasted into the early 80s. The irony? Most kids thought it was Superman. CBS never corrected them. They knew the legend mattered more than the name. And while one hero soared on morality, another tumbled straight into chaos wearing foam boots and regretful smiles. Worst, The Legends of the Superheroes, 1979, NBC.
Legends of the Superheroes. For centuries, the world has been protected by a group of extraordinary...
What happens when Hollywood gives Batman and Superman a stage and forgets to write a script? 1979 found out the hard way. NBC wanted a superhero event. What they got looked like a costume party that ran too long. The Legends of the Superheroes aired as 2-hour-long specials. Adam West returned as Batman, Burt Ward reprised Robin, and a cast of random heroes, Hawkman, Green Lantern, Captain Marvel, stood around trading bad jokes. The studio audience laughed on cue, even when nothing funny happened. Each episode cost around $300,000, a fraction of what the Incredible Hulk spent weekly. The capes looked like curtains. The Flash couldn't run without the camera slowing down to hide the poor effects. Critics called it a Halloween parade filmed by accident. Adam West later joked that he wore the costume one last time to remind everyone what real pain looks like. But the strangest part? NBC actually thought kids would love it. Ratings collapsed after one night. Yet today, bootlegs float on YouTube, gathering cult fascination. People watch it in disbelief, like staring at a superhero museum that melted under studio lights. However, the failure of Legends taught TV a secret. Audiences wanted sincerity again, not parody. And across the ocean, a masked biker hero was already proving that passion could outrun money. Best, Kamen Rider, Japan, 1971, US syndication mid-70s. A grasshopper helmet, a motorbike, and one man fighting fascism on primetime Japanese TV. How did that turn into a global legend? Kamen Rider began in 1971 when manga creator Shotaro Ishinomori decided Japan needed a different kind of hero. No billionaire playboy, no alien savior, just a young man turned into a cyborg against his will by a secret group called Shocker. Instead of giving up, he broke free and used those powers to fight the same people who made him. It was raw, emotional, and filled with motorcycle chases, explosions, and that iconic flying kick. The show aired 6 nights a week in Japan and pulled nearly 25 million weekly viewers at its peak. Kids copied his poses in playgrounds, and toy companies rushed to sell his belt and mask, moving over 2 million units in the first year. What made it hit harder was its honesty. Each episode carried a moral weight about freedom, sacrifice, and fighting corruption. When US syndication hit Hawaii and Los Angeles in the mid-70s, people didn't know what to make of it. The editing was rough, the dubbing awkward, but the energy was real. For many American kids, it became their first taste of Japanese tokusatsu, long before Power Rangers. Decades later, Kamen Rider inspired entire franchises, from Masked Rider to Black RX. The hero who started with a homemade bug mask became Japan's answer to Superman, proof that rebellion could be heroic. But while Kamen Rider burned with purpose, another duo from the same decade took camp to wild new heights and made TV history for all the wrong reasons. Worst, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, 1976-77 Croft Super Show. Two heroines, one disco bat cave, and gadgets that looked borrowed from a toy aisle. How did this glitter-soaked chaos ever make it to TV? Sid and Marty Krofft, the same duo who gave the world H.R. Pufnstoof and Land of the Lost, wanted superheroes for Saturday mornings. So they created Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, a spandex-filled spin on Adam West's Batman. It had everything. Bright sound effects flashing zap, a talking wrist gadget called the Electrocomp, and villains with names like Glitter Rock and Spider Lady. Each episode lasted about 12 minutes, crammed with wild camera angles and bright-colored fog. The scripts made little sense, and sometimes the gadgets worked before the characters even pressed a button, but somehow, kids loved it. Parents thought it was too loud, too flashy, but to children raised on reruns of Batman 66, it felt like candy-coated power. Actress Deidre Hall, who played Electra Woman, later said the whole thing was shot on an almost zero budget and filmed in the same warehouse used for Donnie and Marie. Still, ratings during its short run on ABC's Croft Super Show were solid, proof that style could carry nonsense for at least a year. The show vanished in 1977 but gained cult fame decades later through reruns and fan conventions. A 2001 reboot pilot tried to modernize it with a darker tone, but fans rejected it instantly. Some things belong to the glitter age, and this one stayed there forever. Yet while Electra Woman fought villains in neon tights, another silver hero across the Pacific was rewriting the entire superhero rulebook with monsters taller than skyscrapers. Best, Ultraman, Ultra 7, US dubs, late 60s to 70s. A silver alien battling city-sized monsters on afternoon TV. Too strange for America, too visionary for its time. But why did millions tune in anyway? When Ultraman hit Japanese TV in 1966, it exploded. Over 40% of households watched every week. The series was fast, loud, and packed with heroes who could grow giant and wrestle kaiju in miniature cities built by hand. The sets used model tanks and pyrotechnics so real that some explosions scorched the studio ceiling. By the early 70s, dubbed versions reached the U.S. syndication stations from New York to Los Angeles bought it cheap, filling weekday afternoon slots. Kids who had never seen Japanese TV before were suddenly watching a man in metallic armor punch rubber monsters through toy buildings. It felt alien, yet oddly sincere. The English dubbing made it campy, but the heart was there. Courage, sacrifice, and teamwork. Ultraman's success led to Ultra 7, a deeper, more serious follow-up. In Japan, it became a national phenomenon, spawning movies, toys, and even traffic safety PSAs starring the hero. American kids just thought it was Superman from space. Few knew they were watching the start of a 50-year franchise that would later inspire Power Rangers and Pacific Rim. Ultraman's mix of optimism and scale gave 70s kids something Hollywood couldn't: wonder. And that wonder would soon get twisted into something stranger when a mad scientist started shrinking teenagers for Saturday TV. Worst, Dr. Shrinker, 1976-77 Croft Super Show segment.
Dr. Shrinker, he's a madman with an evil mind.
A villain obsessed with miniaturizing people, a foggy lab, and screaming teens the size of cereal toys. This was meant for kids. Why? Another Sid and Marty Krofft creation. Dr. Shrinker aired as part of their Croft Super Show. It featured a wild-eyed scientist, played by Jay Robinson, who trapped 3 teenagers in his island lab and zapped them with a shrinking ray. From there, every episode repeated the same plot. Tiny kids dodging rats, puddles, and broom handles while the doctor shouted, "I'll get you yet!" It looked cheap because it was. Filmed on miniature sets with oversized props, each episode took only 2 days to shoot. The fog machines often broke, forcing stagehands to blow powder by hand. The scripts were written to fill 11-minute slots, making every story feel rushed and half-finished. But here's the twist: kids still tuned in. They loved the crazy visuals, the high-pitched screams, and the idea that a scientist could turn you into pocket-sized prey. Critics, however, hated it. One called it Frankenstein meets Fisher-Price. It ended after a single season, yet clips still circulate online for its unintentional creepiness. What began as comedy ended up nightmare fuel, proof that the 70s had no limits on weird. And while Dr. Shrinker shrank his cast, another hero soon expanded across galaxies, redubbed, censored, and reassembled into one of the most bizarre imports TV ever saw. Best: Battle of the Planets, U.S. edit of Gatchaman, 1978.
Battle of the Planets.
5 bird-themed heroes, space battles, and a talking robot added just to please American kids. How did Chaos turn into a hit? In Japan, Science Ninja Team Gatchaman was already a massive success by 1972. Fast-paced, violent, and beautifully animated. But when American studios bought it in 1978, they panicked. The show had too many explosions, too much death, and far too many moral gray areas for children's TV. So, what did they do? They chopped out the darker scenes, added new dialogue, and threw in a shiny robot narrator named 7zark7 to explain the gaps. That strange editing choice turned it into Battle of the Planets. It suddenly looked like a cousin to Star Wars. Space heroes, team dynamics, flashy ships, and the timing was perfect. Star Wars had just shaken the world in 1977, and kids were hungry for anything that looked even remotely similar. Ratings soared, airing in over 100 US markets. And for a brief moment, anime had cracked American mainstream television. Casey Kasem, the voice of Robin from Super Friends, even voiced the team leader. Merchandise followed. Comics, lunchboxes, Halloween costumes. Nobody cared that half the storylines made no sense due to edits. The energy was electric, and that was enough. For many kids, this was their first anime without knowing what anime even was. It built the foundation for future imports like Voltron and Robotech. But while Battle of the Planets soared across space, a certain web-slinger was struggling to get off the ground back home. Worst: The Amazing Spider-Man, 1977-79, CBS. He climbed walls slowly, fought robbers instead of villains, and wore a mask that barely moved. How did this Spider-Man still make TV history? CBS spent 2 years trying to bring Spider-Man to life, hiring Nicholas Hammond, a former Sound of Music child star, as Peter Parker. The show aired between 1977 and 1979 with a budget of around $80,000 per episode, which was barely enough for basic stunts. Every wall crawl used wires, mirrors, and endless takes to look believable. It often took 8 hours to film a 30-second climb. Fans expected Green Goblin or Doc Ock. Instead, they got jewel thieves, blackmailers, and random gangsters. Producers avoided comic villains to keep the tone serious. It ended up feeling more like a detective show than superhero TV. Critics mocked the clunky web effects. One called it Spider-Man and the String of Doom. Still, kids loved it. CBS received thousands of fan letters each week, and toy sales spiked. For many, this was the first time they saw a superhero move in real life. Yet behind the scenes, executives were losing faith. When The Incredible Hulk debuted in 1978 and crushed ratings, Spider-Man faded quietly, ending without a finale. Years later, fans looked back with affection. It may have been awkward, but it tried hard. And in that effort, it gave 70s kids their first glimpse of what a superhero could look like outside of comic pages. And as Spider-Man's wires tangled, another hero entered from the unlikeliest source, a hairy legend turned bionic nightmare. Best: Bigfoot in the $6 Million Man, 1976 episodes. A robotic Sasquatch built by aliens, fighting America's favorite bionic hero. Sounds ridiculous. But in 1976, it pulled record TV numbers. Why? When the $6 Million Man introduced Bigfoot, viewers expected another wilderness mystery. Instead, they got one of the strangest crossover events ever put on television. The creature, first played by wrestling legend Andre the Giant, looked like a mix of Chewbacca and a malfunctioning robot. Halfway through the 2-part episode, the big reveal came. Bigfoot wasn't a monster at all. He was a cyborg built by extraterrestrials to guard their hidden base in the mountains. That twist exploded. ABC's Sunday night ratings jumped by over 20%, and kids lost their minds. Fan clubs formed almost overnight, and Kenner Toys rushed to release a Bigfoot action figure. The toy sold out by Christmas 1977, becoming one of the decade's fastest-selling TV tie-ins. Behind the scenes, production was chaos. The costume weighed nearly 90 pounds, and the mechanics that made Bigfoot's eyes glow overheated constantly. During one scene, Andre nearly fainted under the heat. Later episodes recast the role with Ted Cassidy, the voice of Lurch from the Addams Family, to handle the physical work. But none of that mattered to fans. To them, this wasn't silly, it was myth-making. The combination of a bionic man and a robot Bigfoot turned camp into legend. Those episodes aired worldwide, from the US to Australia, and helped push the $6 Million Man past 20 million weekly viewers. After Bigfoot, TV superheroes were never the same. The line between science fiction, folklore, and pure television madness blurred forever, and audiences loved every second of it. Until next time, stay nostalgic.